Hey, glad you're here. Welcome back. This is Coach Bill. I'm glad you're here. We're going to continue discussing pitching from the ground up and using the back leg. If you recall, last time we talked about back foot stability, making sure that ankle is driving straight into the ground. We showed you a little bit of a leg lift drill just to test to make sure that you are being solid, and if you weren't, if your toes were flipping up or you were rolling towards the outside of your foot or you felt your heel come up or your back sway, then you wanted to make sure that was the very first thing you could do was just to lift, and we were going to lift from the hip up, so we weren't swaying back and swinging the leg up. We wanted to make sure that we stayed on top of the back foot, that we didn't lean to the inside, that in our setup our foot wasn't too far outside our shoulder. Ideally, we want it underneath our shoulder. I didn't want to lead with the hip, so I didn't want to falsely load the front hip and lead out. When doing so, that false lead to that front hip pushed me into, or extended me into triple extension through the ankle, through the knee, and through the hip off that back leg, and it almost forced me to push, and when I push, then I push the arm, which then means I'm going to push the ball, so I'm going to be a little disconnected at that point. And two of the final items that we talked about, we wanted ground force, to understand that ground force is down, that the most efficient use of the ground force is down and not out, which is why we didn't want to push, and it also allowed us to rotate as we are looking here at the schematic. And then I wanted to use short external instruction if I was working with a pitcher, so that they would internalize everything, but push into the ground, get rooted into the earth, whatever, those types of instructions then that allow them to interpret for themselves. Okay, so let's pick up here today. I want to show you a couple of pitchers at this point. This is Max Scherzer, and I just want you to notice how he's using this back leg. You can see the drive into the ground. I want you to look at his pinstripe. If we can, I'm trying to find my you can probably see my cursor here. I can't find my pointer here today. But I want you to notice on his pinstripe here on his right leg, you'll see it start to turn towards home plate. It starts to go out the back door. So here we're looking at Scherzer. Don't think he's the only guy. We're going to see the same thing here with Yu Darvish. So we see Darvish working the same style. Okay. If I can, I want to bring up one of the best. This would be Aroldis Chapman. So we can see Chapman. Just let me push here for you. Okay, I'm just going to grab this if I can. You can see right here, see that backside start to work. He's firmly in the ground. I'm going to get this out of here. I want you just to watch his back foot. I don't know if I can loop this or not. I'm going to just continue to work it. See a good strong back foot into the ground. All of those things, that's what we're looking for. So, when we look at these high-level pitchers, I'm just going to come back to Scherzer since that's looping. When we start looking at what we see is they have a really stable back foot. If it's not stable, we're probably asking for trouble. So, and there's, quite a few reasons. There's 3 or 4 or 5 reasons as to why that back foot won't stabilize. So it's not quite as easy as you think it is. And we'll get into that down the road here just a little bit. You're also going to notice that they stay on top of that knee. Okay, so we talked about what happens if I get inside that back foot, but right here he's putting his ground force right into. He's creating ground force by putting his weight right into the ground. You can see he's not loading the hips. He's not trying to falsify those hips. You don't see the front knee going diagonally to the back knee. You just see it lift, and his hip turn has turned it. It's not like he is knowingly moving the front side to the back side, which is actually will just cause you to spin out And then you can definitely see there is no straight leg off that backside. There's no straight leg there. So, again, it's the movement within the dots. We're not trying to achieve positions because it just isn't going to work, but understanding that what we're looking at here is a little bit of a corkscrew. Okay, and this is what we're looking at. We're looking at the corkscrew. And in order to accomplish that, okay, and what it does, I mean, yes, it helps us to stabilize the foot. It's also going to let us use our hips the correct way. And if I have a video, yeah, okay, here it goes. Here's the skeletal. And if we just watch the arrow rotate around, you can see how the hips want to work. And notice how they're rotating. They're not slipping. They're not going up over the top. They're just rotating around. And that's an area that we really get away from with our kids when we're asking them. Again, it's understanding how we have to move the middle here. And if we look at the schematic here, we can see that midline, the midline moving through... oh, excuse me here, guys. I keep trying to find that pointer. Moving through, I might have it. This midline right here, just turning around that midline. So, let's see where we're at. See what I've done. I've sort of messed up our thing. Oh, look at that. I'm learning. Okay, but we see that midline turning. Okay? And in order to do that, we have to be able to get into a proper hip hinge. So this is one of our young men, and you can just see he's in this good hip hinge. If I can get that off there. Let me work on opening up the screen just a little bit. So I wanted to take a look at Derek here. This is in our hip hinge, and I just went away a little bit here to adjust our screen. And we can see that he's holding into this, and he's driving force into the ground with that back foot, and he's really working on this. It's something that we work on all the time, getting proper hip hinge, making sure that the glute is activated, and driving back. So once we are aware of that, what we're looking for then, we're looking for Derek to start to make his rooting in the ground. Okay, we can see he's got a little shift here on the back foot, which is going to affect him. He's working hard here to try to get down into that glute. So we can see it right here. And this is an area that we are always continuing to work on. Derek does a really good job. We'll see him come back here in just a little bit. And finally, he comes up and I don't know if I can grab this. And finally, he's really working on rooting this backside. He sits down into it, and he's riding the slide at this point. Okay, this is our flat ground work. Sitting as long as he can move. Okay, so finally driving that weight into the ground and not side to side. So, this is going to lead into stride length. This is going to lead into the front foot post. And we'll talk about that in the next video. See you soon.